So thanks everyone for coming and thanks for joining us for this evening's event. My name is Kevin and I'm one of the event hosts here at Powell's Books. Before we begin, I wanted to encourage you to check out our lineup of upcoming virtual events by visiting our website at powells.com. And if you don't already do so, please consider following us on social media. Tonight, we are absolutely delighted to welcome Gregory Gourdet and Michelle Tam. Born in Brooklyn and raised in Queens, Gregory Gourdet is the child of Haitian immigrants. A self-proclaimed health freak and avid runner, Gourdet views food as a source of nourishment as much as one of pleasure. After graduating from the prestigious Culinary Institute of America, he became chef de cuisine at Jean-Georges in New York for almost 7 years. In 2008, Gourdet arrived in Portland, Oregon. He led the Pan-Asian kitchen at Departure for a decade, running one of the busiest restaurants in the state. He is a James Beard Award nominee and a two-time Top Chef finalist, as well as an all-star and guest judge. He's been named Chef of the Year by Eater and one of the fittest chefs in America by Men's Health. His wood-fired Haitian restaurant, Con, will be opening here in Portland next year. When the trend-setting chef got sober after a harrowing car accident at the end of 2007, he took stock of his life and his pantry, concentrating his energy on getting himself healthy by cooking food that was both full of nutrients and full of flavor. Now he shares these extraordinary dishes with everyone. Gourdet's Everyone's Table features 200 mouth-watering, decadently flavorful recipes carefully designed to focus on superfoods, ingredients with the highest nutrient density, the best fats, and the most minerals, vitamins, and antioxidants that will delight home cooks. Gourdet's dishes are inspired by his deep affection for global ingredients and techniques, from his Haitian upbringing to his French culinary education, from the cuisines of Asia, as well as those of North and West Africa. His unique culinary odyssey informs his one-of-a-kind cookbook, which features dynamic vegetable-forward dishes and savory meaty stews, umami-packed sauces, and easy ferments, and more. Everyone's Table will change forever the way we think about, approach, and enjoy healthy cooking. This is the book. He joins us from right here in Portland, Oregon tonight. Joining Gourdet in conversation is Michelle Tam. Tam is the co-creator of the award-winning food blog Nom Nom Paleo, together with her husband Henry Fong. They've also produced a two-time Webby Award-winning cooking app, authored 2 New York Times best-selling cookbooks, and have been nominated for a James Beard Award. Their newest cookbook, Nom Nom Paleo, Let's Go, will be released this coming December. Dubbed the Martha Stewart of Paleo by the New York Times and CBS News, Michelle is the food nerd behind Nom Nom Paleo's recipes and personality. She joins us tonight from Hawaii. This evening's event will include an audience Q&A. Please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen if you'd like to ask a question. As well, if someone has typed a question that you'd like to answer, you can click on the thumbs up button and upvote that question. More importantly, please consider supporting Gregory and Powell's by purchasing a copy of his new book from us, just came out today. And a link to buy Everyone's Table, along with Michelle's cookbooks, will be shared in the chat a couple of times this evening. Gregory, Michelle, we're so excited to welcome you both. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so excited to do this, DG. It's like we're just chatting and then people can just eavesdrop. But today we are going to talk about your cookbook instead of all the other stuff that we could talk about, because that is why we're here, to celebrate the launch of Everyone's Table. And I would look this up, but I've used it so much that this is like super precarious. It might tip over because it has been. But I want you, like, I think this is probably the one cookbook, and I am a huge cookbook collector, that I've been waiting for years. And I think ever since I knew you, I was like, when's your cookbook coming out? When's your cookbook coming out? And I think when I saw you like, shooting it and then I was able to recipe test it, like I don't think I've been happier. And then getting the final book in my hands and just seeing how comprehensive it is, it's amazing. So you did an amazing job. So you should
So,
congratulate yourself.
thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you.
Okay, yeah.
So I want you to tell people like what you want them to get out of everyone's table. Like, what is your goal in producing this epic tome?
Well, everyone's table is really a cookbook for everyone, hence the title. Even though it is focused on dietary distinctions, that's a huge part of it. So it is gluten-free, it is dairy-free, it is soy and grain and legume-free. There's no refined sugar in the book, but at the same time, it's full of nutrient-rich foods. It's full of tips and tricks to make you a better cook from, me, a very lengthy trained chef. But I think the thing I want people to get out of it is that I don't want anyone to think it's a diet book. And I just want people to use it as a resource to just eat better. So, I have, a couple dietary distinctions, but at the same time, I'm also very short for time. I don't have a family, but I have a very busy career. I don't like spending a lot of time in the kitchen when I'm at home. I like accessible ingredients, but I also have a well-stocked pantry of global ingredients, from fish sauce and chilies, different spice mixes that I love to eat and use. And I keep them on hand to spice up my food. So, whether you're on an alternative diet, whether you just want to eat a better meal one day a week, whether you just want to know a few tips and tricks to step your game up when cooking vegetables or roasting chicken or baking salmon, some really simple everyday items, the book is for you.
And I think part of the reason why, like, I've known Gigi since 2012. And the first time I met Gigi was at this food blogging conference. And it was my first food blogging conference ever. And I didn't know anybody. And it was my first time in Portland. And I remember everywhere I went, like, people would see my name tag and they saw it said Nom Nom Paleo. I was like, oh, you're a paleo? You have to meet Gigi. Like, he's this chef. He's doing this Taste of Oregon event we're doing later. And he's like super, like, his food is amazing. He's amazing. And it's all gluten-free and paleo. And I was like, wow, that's like amazing. And so then I met you and I remember, like, I was like, wow, he's so cute too. Cause I think that was the year you won like hottest chef of 2012.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And so, but I think what I loved about your food, and like, we were fans at Departure and Con, is that your food, no one would know that it's like gluten-free and dairy-free by default. And like, I can take my parents there and other people that aren't, that think the way that we eat is kind of crazy. Mm-hmm. And all they say is like, this is just super delicious. And, so thank you. And that's why I think what I love about this book is that you've designed it for home cooks. Like, I definitely think there are recipes in there that I think will push people. Like, it pushes me because I'm so lazy. But as I told you, I was like, you have totally inspired me to go, to the Caribbean market, to the Latin market, to go to like the Asian markets and kind of pick out all the things that I'm like, I'm not sure I'm going to use this. But then I was like, oh, there's so many ways to use it. And so what are some of the kind of what's an unusual ingredient that you think people, that when they're flipping through your book, they'll be like, I'm not sure I want to look for this, but you think that it's like important?
I definitely think fish sauce is one of those ingredients. I know you're a huge fan of fish sauce, and you're a huge fan of umami. I think we even did a demo on umami once at a festival. But I think fish sauce is kind of one of those great ingredients that are used in different cultures. So there's a pretty strong cultural reference in parts of Asia. But also, it's just a really flavor-packed ingredient. It has tons of umami, and it just really makes things delicious. And it's also very chef-stable. So if you source a great fish sauce, and I like a few different types that are explained in the book, and they can go from, a few dollars a bottle, like $3 for, you can totally get a decent fish sauce for $3 a bottle, to like $10 a bottle. There are various brands. But, you know, I think keeping that in your back pocket, there's definitely tons of recipes that have fish sauce in the book. And, you know, you can kind of make awesome dressings and, you know, sauces and marinades, and, you know, you can have that up your arsenal. And I always keep tons of fish sauce around, and it's one way to add amazing things to your food. The best thing about fish sauce also is that because it's very salty, it's very funky, it pairs really well with acid, and it pairs really well with sweeteners. So just by nature, by using fish sauce, oftentimes if you pair it with those other flavors, you're going to create something that's super delicious and super dynamic. And I think that's really the focus of the book, making food that is really fun, that's explosive, and that's dynamic.
So one thing that I think a lot of people don't know about your book is you have over 200 recipes, and it's like over 400 pages. So I think Henry and I looked at that and we're like, gosh, what an overachiever. Like 400 pages is really hard. It's hard to fill up 400 pages in a cookbook. But what I loved about your cookbook is you have like so many different chapters, and each chapter, because as a cookbook author too, we're always like, you need a minimum amount of recipes per chapter. And each one, we're like, God dang it. He's like crammed every single chapter with so many amazing recipes, and each one has a picture and they're all beautiful. But I like that you have like 2 separate chapters for vegetables, which I love vegetables, and that's one of my favorite things that you cook. So you have raw and cold plants, and cooked and hot plants. You have a separate eggs chapter. You have a morning meals chapter. And I think my favorite chapter that you have is dips. And I think a lot of people, when they were talking about it, they're like, dips is like, I'm buying it just for the dips chapter, just because, and they're all dairy-free, gluten-free,
all the
delicious dips.
Yeah. That's really funny because I got to review that there weren't enough dip recipes, that the dip chapter was too short. So
you can your next book can be devoted to dips. Yeah.
No, I mean, for me, you know, I understand that there's a really big movement on eating more vegetables, and I think that's something that's extremely important. And for me, I'll be very, very honest, I oftentimes don't eat very balanced meals. You know, I'll often eat like some chicken or a piece of fish. Like, I tend to lean on protein. And oftentimes, to make up for that, I just eat like a big plate of vegetables. I eat like a huge salad, or, you know, a really huge amount of roasted vegetables. And in my restaurants, you know, the salads have always been really popular. So, you know, I really wanted this book to be for everyone in your family as well. So if you have vegetarians, if you have vegans, there's actually quite a few plant-based recipes. Half of the book is actually vegetarian. It's vegan friendly. There's tons of dishes that you can make out of the book. If there's omnivores in your household, you know, you can pass the book to the person who wants to eat meat. And there's tons of recipes for chicken. There's tons of recipes for salmon. You know, for me, I really wanted this to be really comprehensive. And I understand that, you know, health definitely starts with lots of vegetables and eating plants and getting more of those on the table in interesting ways. But also, you know, I support, you know, organic meat and regenerative agriculture. So I'm definitely of the school that, you know, I think good, responsible meat is actually pretty important. And we can all make our own choices. Yes, we should all eat more vegetables, 100%. That's why there's 2 whole chapters dedicated to vegetables and to start the book.
So in terms of what influenced your book, because I think some people think, is it just like departure recipes, or is it like recipes from Khan? Like what are kind of the influences for your book? Because it really is very global. It's not like you have food from all over in the book.
You know, I think for me, when I started writing this book, I knew it was going to be a very personal project. So I think I really just started like, you know, when we were writing the proposal, you know, someone told me that, you know, you have to have every single recipe that you want in the book. So I literally, you know, I just wrote down every single dish that I loved, like all my favorite dishes of all time. I just started writing them down. And that's how I kind of came up with most of the recipes. But then I started thinking, well, you know, what are the most popular ingredients? You know, carrots. You know, there's multiple carrot recipes in the book. Cauliflower. There's a couple cauliflower recipes in the book. What are these ingredients that we use year round? You know, chicken. You know, there's multiple chicken, whole chicken, chicken thighs, chicken wings. You know, slow baked salmon, grilled salmon. So I really wanted it to be comprehensive, and have a way for you to cook almost everything that you can think of that's, in a regular pantry, in a regular fridge, and in a regular grocery store. But yeah, I've been influenced by so many different things from, working in fine dining as the early part of my career, learning French techniques. I was introduced to Asian ingredients at a very early part of my career because, the chef that I worked for had started his career in Asia as well. So that was always introduced. Then working at Departure, which was a Pan-Asian concept, and, going to Asia, going to Japan and Thailand numerous times a year, Korea and Vietnam, and, spending time in these countries and, working in the kitchens over there, even importing the ingredients and from farms directly over there. So working with these ingredients quite extensively. And then most recently tapping into my Haitian heritage. That also 100% goes into the foods of the African diaspora. So, Caribbean flavors, Africa, Western Africa, Northern Africa, and, all of these influence me, so I just think of like my favorite things, and I just really listed, some of my favorite things that came to mind. And that's how the book came out to be. And I really tried to have it balanced in terms of cultures represented, and, that with just the recipes that are focused on seasonal ingredients, because I think it's really important that we talk about seasonal ingredients as well. And like when I mean seasonal, I mean like, berries and watermelon and asparagus, things that actually have a real season that you don't find year round. Or if you do, they're from somewhere far away. So yeah, so I'm, complex. Someone called me complex today, and hard to.
But it is. It is, but it isn't. Like, because I feel like you have made you were very conscious about making it work for home kitchens. And so I think there are certain kind of stretch ingredients that you ask for, but not every recipe is asking for stretch ingredients.
Yeah.
But I think when you do ask for stretch ingredients, it's not just to make it hard for the cook. Like, I think it really does make a difference. And I know when we were recipe testing, I think I was making your cinnamon and chocolate brownie ice cream. Indeed. Because I specifically wanted to test dessert recipes, because Gigi at Departure and at Con, they have the most amazing dairy-free desserts, and they're always delicious. And his ice creams were delicious, but I remember like in the ingredients list, you're like, yeah, you need to like grate a cinnamon stick. And I was like, what? Why do I have to do that? Can't I just buy ground cinnamon? And you're like, no, that's it. Like, you should at least try this. And so I'm like, fine. So then I didn't actually grate it. I just threw it in my Vitamix. But it really did taste like so much better. And I was like, Gigi was right. I cannot be lazy. Like, there are certain things that you just shouldn't shortcut.
Yeah, and then the thing with that is, you can easily just grind some cinnamon. I talk about having a good blender. If you don't, you can literally buy a $20 coffee grinder and use that as a spice grinder. But, whole spices are definitely one of those things that I encourage tremendously in the book. And you can always grind like, a nice handful of cinnamon sticks and keep that on hand. But, I think oftentimes people don't really understand what adding a little bit more of something does. You might think something tastes good already. And like, that's kind of in your head. You think it has enough seasoning. But until you try, and as chefs, we try a lot of different things. What happens when you add more? Even though you might think something tastes delicious, what happens when you add a little bit more of this, or a little bit more of that, or a little bit less of this? And oftentimes, you can get a lot more flavor into something. And luckily, I've tested these recipes with some good friends of mine, and everything's measured out to the T, including salt. So I hope that you can find some foolproof recipes that, you realize that, with a few tips and tricks, your food tastes better than you thought it could.
Yeah, I think that, and I think in your book too, you specifically say, make my recipe the way that I say, at least the first time, so you know what it should taste like or what my intentions are with this dish. And that even means you specify Diamond Crystal Kosher salt, which I also love, which is the red box compared to Morton's. And it's not like there's anything wrong with Morton's, but there's the shape of the crystal actually makes it so that you use like more, you can use more of diamond crystal because it's got like that little flakier, whatever, the little
hollow. So it's actually
Mhm.
shaped like a crystal. So the salt is actually hollow. So when you feel it, you can feel it how much you're using, and it actually clings to the food better because it's a pointy tip. Whereas Morton's, which is the blue salt, is very dense and much finer. So it actually makes food saltier. So that's why we're a Team Red Box.
Yes, Team Red Box all the way. But I do think that is important. Like I think people, like when people are like, how come my food doesn't taste as good as when I go out to eat? Like there are just tips and tricks. And I think you share like a lot of those tips and tricks in everyone's table. And some of it is like just like kind of venturing outside your comfort zone, going to the farmer's market, going to like an Asian market or an international market and like spices and a lot of other things are cheaper at those markets and there's more turnover, so it's fresher.
Yeah, I encourage you all to, if you do go to, the international market, the Asian market, the Caribbean market, the African market, buy those ingredients in bulk. Oftentimes if you're buying a sturdy root vegetable, or if you can't find plantains and you need to go to one of these stores to find plantains, you can let plantains ripen for a couple weeks and it keeps changing. Or, if you're buying something like palm sugar or coconut milk, or Roy D's, the brand I prefer, or chilies that, I give you, you can store these things, you can freeze the chilies. There's a very lengthy pantry section in the start of the book. It's about 25 pages. And I go over every single ingredient. I tell you how to store it, how to use it. And obviously the glossary in the back of the book tells you exactly how many recipes feature that ingredient.
So okay, I know that you've probably gotten this question a lot, but what are 3 easy recipes that, like, let's say you're a newbie and you don't feel confident in the kitchen. What are 3 easy recipes that you recommend people cook from the cookbook?
Sure. So I personally think the easiest recipe is probably the first recipe, which is the cucumber salad. But right away, we're starting with having you make chili oil, chili and chili paste. So already, you're getting in there, you're making something that you can keep in your pantry. The chili oil can last for months and months and months. So you make that, you have that on hand. Cucumber, super approachable ingredient. They're coming into season. And it's really just, some coconut aminos, another item that you should keep in your pantry, some garlic, some cilantro. It's just a really nice, crisp, cold, super simple salad. That's why it's the first recipe in the book. So I think if you're a beginner, that's already one of those things where you're gonna have some new ingredients in your pantry. You're gonna make something really cool that you can spice up other dishes with. And you're gonna have a quick, easy, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free side that's ready to go any time of the year. I think going into more advanced vegetable, I am a huge fan of the jerk cauliflower recipe. It's something that's really fun. I know you've done a whole roasted cauliflower as well. And I think I actually did your recipe when I was trying to figure mine out for cooking times and all that good stuff.
But yours is fancier.
But the jerk cauliflower is a whole head of cauliflower. When we talk about having vegetables be a centerpiece, when we talk about, giving vegetables the royal treatment, this is the dish. You buy the whole thing, you throw it in the oven with some olive oil and salt, you bake it, you add a little bit of water, you bake it a little bit longer, and then you slather a jerk sauce all over it. And the jerk sauce is one of those recipes. It's bold, it's spicy, it's got habanero, it's got red chilies, it's got ginger, it's got allspice, it's got bay leaf. It's one of those things that, you're gonna have to tap into your spice cabinet a little bit, but the results are definitely worth it. And you can keep that jerk sauce, you can use it on chicken, you can use it on fish, you can keep it in your pantry, and you can just make the jerk sauce for other things. Once you slather it all over that head of cauliflower, you put it in your broiler. It's red, it's charred, it's golden, it's spicy, it's addictive. And it's just really one of my favorite recipes in the book for sure. And then
One more.
The third, I would say the roasted chicken. There's a recipe in there for chicken that's roasted with ginger over a bed of vegetables. And who doesn't love a roasted chicken dinner? It's probably the most iconic things that we can cook. It's one of my favorite things to cook. It's one of my favorite things to eat. Who doesn't love, a one-pan meal? I show you how to spatchcock the chicken, which just simply means cutting the backbone out, laying it out flat over a bed of vegetables, some ginger, some garlic, some seasonal veg, throw it in the oven, and in an hour you have a full dinner for four on the table. And something that I really hope people get out of the book is just really clinging onto these techniques. So, the recipe for the chicken, if you get a chicken that's about the same weight every time, the cooking time should be perfect every time. So if you want to change the vegetables, if you want to change the glaze, you have a foolproof method to cook a roasted, beautiful chicken every single time. And that's where the fun really starts, because once you have these techniques down, you can make them your own.
All right. So I don't know. There's like a bunch of questions that people have, and I feel like your fans should be answered. So I'm going to start asking some of these, because I think there's a lot of questions. And I think if you guys have questions, you guys should pop them now, just so we can get them all in. Okay. I know there's lots of Top Chef questions. So this is one. It says, Gregory, I got this too. Someone sent me this directly. How do you eat healthy or stay gluten-free when you're a judge on Top Chef and have to taste all the chef's food? I've asked you this.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I 100% did not. So I am gluten-free, dairy-free for about 10, 11 years, but I'm actually not celiac or anything. I just get really bloated. I learned that I get really sleepy if I have dairy and gluten. But for the sake of Top Chef and for the sake of the opportunity, I literally ate every single thing that was put in front of me all season long. And I immediately went home back to my hotel room and took a nap after every single challenge. I'll be very, very honest. But that's kind of the price I chose to pay. In my personal life, I don't eat those things, but, having traveled all around the world and, as someone who's really trying to learn about food, I oftentimes taste things that I don't normally eat. If I go to Italy, I'll have a couple bites of pasta. If I go to Japan, I'll have a couple bites of ramen. These things definitely do not agree with me. But for the sake of knowledge, I will have a couple bites and deal with the repercussions, because I don't get super, super sick, but it definitely does not make me feel good. But I did it for TV.
So I had a question, like how much of that dish do the judges eat? Do they just take a bite, or do they, if it's so good, you eat the whole thing? Or?
I mean, usually, in the beginning, there's a lot of food, and I mean, you can eat as much as you want. I mean, if it's delicious, oftentimes we eat the whole thing, but oftentimes.
Because I always think, so sorry, I know this is going to be just me asking about Top Chef questions, but let's say you're one of the later people, aren't you at a disadvantage because like the judges potentially are so full?
No,
or no?
We're all pros, We're all pros. Padma can, eat a lot. She literally eats every single thing made the entire season. So oftentimes she's eating like sometimes 30 things a day with the quick fire.
Yeah.
We're all pros, so.
Okay, so Fiona asked, you inspire me so much. What are some of your favorite local markets in Portland?
Oh, that's a great question. Obviously the farmers market, and I'll be very honest, I really haven't been to the farmers market that much because I was just doing my pop-up and I worked almost every single day. But, the farmers markets here are tremendous. The PSU farmers market, the Beaverton farmers market, those are both great markets. I have a lot of friends who, sell products there. Flying Fish is a tremendous resource locally in Portland for all sustainable seafood options. My friend Leaf runs that. And they have everything from local clams and rockfish and black cod. And they also have a great menu and a great restaurant there as well. I shop at Foodon quite a bit. I shop at H Mart quite a bit, which is like a little bit closer to being in town. And while H Mart is mostly a Korean run restaurant, there is definitely a multitude of Asian ingredients. And, the best part of, restaurants that have Southeast Asian ingredients is that, a lot of these ingredients are just tropical ingredients, and they actually are grown in the Caribbean as well. So, while we might not have a large Caribbean market here, I can often find Caribbean ingredients at like Lily Market, which is a Thai market, and Foodon and H Mart. because they do carry the same kind of ingredients like taro root and Scotch bonnet chilies and ingredients of the such.
And banana leaves.
Yeah,
Like banana leaves, I thought, I was like, oh, that's so hard to find. But literally any Latin market or Asian market or Indian market, there's tons of banana leaves. And I was like, you just have to go outside your regular
also
supermarket.
Sheridan Fruit Market is actually a really, really great store. I live just a few blocks away, and they actually carry a few amazing things. They carry frozen Marion berries year round, which is, one of my favorite berries, native to Oregon. They carry muckroot lime leaves, which is, hands down one of my favorite herbs, and oftentimes a little bit more tricky to find. So I definitely like creeping around Sheridan Market. They have a really tremendous selection for a small store.
Yeah, I think their meat selection is also really good. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, so Blaine wants to know, what was your recipe testing process like?
Oh my God. It was really, really intense. And we, to be very honest, the book grew. So as a chef, I come up with dishes and, they have a vegetable and a sauce. Sometimes they have two sauces, or they have a protein and a sauce and a vegetable. And my recipes.
And a pickle.
So as much as I wanted this to be like a home cooked book, my recipes became very, very long. And so my writer, JJ, he was like, hey, we need to make these recipes shorter. So let's move all the sauces to a sauce chapter, or all these pickles and sides to their own chapters. So that's actually why the book grew as much as it did. But we hired 2 recipe testers. One lived here. Her name is Laura Russell. She's amazing. And one lived in California, and her name is Kevin Ayard. And they were tasked with recipe testing the book. And we were having a plan that they would recipe test all 200 recipes. But we quickly learned that it took some time. They would make the recipe. They would send me pictures of all the ingredients. They would send me pictures of the step-by-step of getting to the final product. And then they would send me pictures of the final product plated. They would send me kind of groups of these recipes as they did them. And I would give them feedback with my writer, JJ. And they would give us notes on any of the steps, if the cooking time was different, if something needed to be longer, if something wasn't really quote, easy to understand, they would give us tons of feedback on the recipes and how the recipe was actually written. And if something just didn't work, as sometimes it really didn't, they would test it again with our notes and feedback. But I'll be very honest, down to the wire, we had to emergency get some help from friends like Michelle and some other friends who were there for our last month to help recipe test the last few recipes, because we were not going to meet our deadline at the pace that we were going, because testing 200 recipes is quite a thing. But for me, I live in a very small apartment. I got my little bachelor pad, but I was working at a friend's really big kitchen at the start of the pandemic. Before the pandemic, recipe testing, I tested some of this at Departure when I worked there, because I've been working this for a few years. But I moved into testing everything in my apartment in my very small kitchen, and I had pots and pans everywhere. But yeah, I would just, come up with the recipes and test them, and then pass them off to someone else, because as I've learned, knowing how to make something does not make you a recipe tester, because I have a lot of intuition about how to make things. So getting feedback from people who don't know the recipe is extremely important.
Yeah, and Google Docs is a great way to share. So people can always put their feedbacks and comments, and it's a good way to kind of keep everything in one place. So Jordan asks, Chef, what's your go-to multi-purpose dinner in a pinch sauce that's always in your fridge at home?
I think for me, hot sauce. I think there's a hot sauce recipe in the book. Actually, I'll go back. It's definitely just chili oil. And I think chili oil there's 2 chili oils in the book. There's one straight up just chili oil, which is just chilies and oil. And there's a chili paste, which has shallots and garlic and chilies. and dry chilies and fresh chilies. And I keep them both on hand. And really, it's my all-purpose go-to. I just keep them in the pantry. They're super shelf-stable. They last months. And I drizzle them on my eggs. I drizzle them on my roast chicken. I drizzle them into salsa if I'm feeling lazy, and I bought some salsa, guacamole. But yeah, that's definitely my go-to. In my fridge, I definitely always have pickles. And pickles is the spicy Haitian pickle. It's a pickle of cabbage and Scotch bonnet chilies and onions and carrots and shallots with lime juice and vinegar. And it's truly the most iconic Haitian condiment. And we have it always on the lunch and dinner table. And it's just a great way to add some crunch and some acid into heat and to all your favorite foods.
Yeah, and I saw in that recipe how you recommend people hand cut everything, but I think you can put it through the food processor. It'll make it fast. But that is actually something I want to make when as soon as we get back.
I mean, that you can definitely make pickles. Pickles is one of those ingredients. Like I've had pickles on the beach in Haiti, and it's literally been onions and habanero and white vinegar, and it's just like really pungent and spicy and delicious. And I've seen some versions that are cut with a mandolin and have peas and bell peppers. So you can make different styles. And
is original pickles, does it have any sweetener in it? Because
Nope.
like yours is like a Whole30 version, but it is naturally without sugar.
No, it does not have sweetener. It should be tart and acidic, and very, very spicy, and crunchy, and well seasoned.
Okay, so an anonymous attendee asks, with people eating healthier and better knowledge in how clean eating affects autoimmune disorders, do you see the industry of trendy fine dining restaurants moving in this direction?
Yeah, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen. I know like 11 Mass and Park made an announcement this week that they're going all plant-based. And I think, again, I'm a really big fan of regenerative agriculture and sustainable meats. I think there's a whole industry there that's actually good for the environment and, small local farms. I live in Oregon, so I'm actually really good friends with a lot of local ranchers. But again, eating plant-based is extremely important. I think coming out of a pandemic, where, we immediately went to comfort foods, because we were dealing with so much hardship last year. I think coming out of it, I think we all probably want to eat a little bit healthier. We all want to eat better. We know that the restaurant industry is a huge ecosystem. And so, having restaurants close, that really has impacted farmers. And harvesters and foragers. So we want to get everything up and running again. So we don't want to waste food because restaurants are closed, but Mother Nature is still providing for us. So I definitely see us moving to more healthful options. I know specifically it's really important as a chef, collectively, that we have really good relationship with our farmers. That's something that's been on the up and up, and kind of listing what farms were used on the menu, these types of things. So I honestly do feel that we are moving toward a more healthful way of eating, even in the fine dining space.
Yeah, and who knows what's going to happen with fine dining? Like after pandemic, like maybe there will be just more regular restaurants that have kind of this more health focus, which would be nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so this next question, what are some of your favorite restaurants in Portland or around Portland? Do you have any favorite dishes?
I have a lot of favorite restaurants. I think one of the restaurants that I go to the most is probably Padi. I am a huge fan of Thai food, Southeast Asian flavors in general. They have a restaurant next door called Long Bon, which I frequent a lot. They also have a fried chicken concept, which is all gluten-free, called Hat Yai, which I frequent a lot as well. Toki is a Korean restaurant that my friends run. They also have Hanok, so I go there quite a bit. Fermenter is a vegan restaurant, and they do some really cool things with fermentation, from the drinks to all their sauces and garnishes, and that's a really great space as well. What else? Yeah, I mean,
I liked Republica. I tried Republica. It's really good.
Yeah.
And I tried that the last time I was there, and it's just really amazing Mexican food. And you can eat a lot of gluten-free stuff. And I thought it was really delicious.
Yeah.
It's not 100% paleo because there's corn, but it tastes really good.
Yeah, Navarre is actually one of my favorite restaurants in Portland. And it's always been kind of like a best kept little secret, no eat brunch, but it's European style and everything's a la carte and everything is super delicious and super simple. I also had a really delicious meal at Dame last weekend, and that was really lovely as well.
Yeah, Navarre, you shouldn't talk about it because literally on the weekend you can go in and there's no line and it's amazing.
That's
And
the best.
yeah. Okay, so I have another question from Ian. It says, I live somewhere where there isn't an abundance of non-root vegetable ingredients. How do you figure out what ingredients to substitute into your recipes? I have struggled with this in the past with some California-centric cookbooks in the past. So I guess where he lives, he only has root vegetables.
Okay.
And not too much of the other stuff.
Okay. I mean, I do believe there are, I don't know how comfortable you feel about getting vegetables shipped to you from across the world, but, or the country, but I mean, I can't imagine a farm is too far away. And, if you do want to diversify what you're eating, I suggest, using modern technology and ordering something and getting it sent. I do believe there's, companies like Imperfect Produce, or, I know there are some, farms and companies that do ship, because this is the times that we live in. But I mean, I think if you've kind of run out of options locally and you've really sourced your area for, all the ingredients and you're still lacking something, I would just say order it, and try to be sustainable in some other ways.
And you can now buy those growing pod things. Have you seen those where it basically is like self-watering and then it just grows all these greens? Have you seen those?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a green thumb, but I always see that. I'm like, wow, that would be pretty cool. But I feel like I would kill it.
Yeah, your scallion.
That's true. Scallions, except the scallions have overrun. So I had these windowsill scallions that Owen, my older son, helped me replant. But now, I haven't, I they just grow out of control. And so now they've flowered and they're super thick. Okay. So I was like, maybe I'll throw them on the grill. But I think I just need to cut them so they'll be young again. Yeah. Okay, so Olivia wants to know, what's your favorite kind of mushroom?
My favorite type of mushroom, I think for every day, it's shiitake. I personally think they are one of the easiest to cook because they tend to have be a little drier than some of the other mushroom varieties, and I think they have the most depth of flavor for mushrooms that you can buy at the grocery store every single day. So shiitake is one of my favorites. I always keep some of those around or in my mushroom mix. But
do you buy dry?
I do, because you've inspired me to make mushroom powder.
Yeah, the dried stuff I love.
Yeah,
and you can keep in your pantry forever.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Like the dried shiitakes are really great. We used to do a pickle of them at the restaurant, but yeah, I buy those at the Chinese grocer. Those are really good. What else? I mean, if we're getting fancy, I love porcinis and matsutakes. But that's not at home. That's like at the restaurant.
But king oysters, I think, is kind of a good.
Oh yeah,
it's a good meaty, good meaty one.
You just
that you
some
could throw in.
For that, yeah.
Yeah, I like king oyster. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Let's see which one just popped to the top. Oh, here, this question. Sarah says, "Are you wearing your own outfits on Top Chef, or are they selected by the production company?" You know what? I was watching an episode, and people were like, "Yeah, does Gigi dress himself, or did someone dress him?"
No, I
think that's Gigi.
I don't have a stylist. I don't have an assistant. That's why I'm always running around like a crazy person.
No, but you look so stylish on the show.
I dress myself.
So put together.
We didn't have that much to do, so I dressed myself. It's a lot different when you're just like eating for like 3 hours instead of like sweating and running around for 12 hours, freaking out, thinking you're gonna go home.
Okay, so this one I think we've already answered. Andrew was asking the top 5 favorites from the book, but we already did 3. So unless you want to throw in 2 others.
Yeah.
How about a dessert? And dip.
I think the most iconic dessert in the cake is the Haitian spice pineapple upside down cake. And that's a little, kind of advanced, but I think you should definitely tackle that recipe. It's really delicious. It's one of our signatures at the restaurant. It makes you start with our paleo flour blend. And this is a really great blend. It's a mix of almond flour, tapioca starch, and coconut flour. And this is a really good blend for making cakes and muffins and breads. You can use it one for one, and it really has a nice crumb. A lot of people cannot tell actually no one can tell it's gluten-free because the crumb is really nice. And Haitian pineapple upside down cake is an iconic Haitian dessert. It's usually like a wheat flour based cake. It's heavily spiced with vanilla and almond extract and cinnamon and lime zest. And that is exactly what seasons this cake. And I think I really love the frozen avocado pie. I think that's one of my favorite ingredients is recipes as well. It's actually it's a raw dessert.
Like the key lime pie-ish one,
It
right?
is. Yeah. It is. It's got monk-fruit lime. So it's avocados and lime juice and maple syrup and coconut oil. And you throw everything in a blender and you pour it over a crust made from cashews and coconuts, actually, that you grind up. And you throw it in the freezer. And it's one of those frozen cool desserts. As it gets warmer, it's going to be something that you should make for sure. I think those are kind of like opposite spectrums of the dessert, but I came up with both of the desserts on my own, and I'm really proud of it because I'm not really a pastry chef. And if
I don't know, your desserts are pretty good. Like the ice creams are all really good. A lot of work.
Yeah, especially now, I don't have a lot of pastry people. So yeah, I was really grateful for the pandemic and for this book because I got to work on some desserts and kind of learn some things. And it's been really fun. So if I can
me too.
I know you can
I think the two of us started like pandemic baking when we normally don't. Okay, let's see. Oh, so here's one. So Vanessa wants to know, which recipe in your book makes you feel the most proud?
I think the ice cream recipe actually, because the ice cream recipe was something that took me quite some time to develop. And I knew I wanted the ice cream to be vegan. That way everyone who used the book can make the ice creams. And I feel like ice cream is one of those things where, I feel like everyone should be able to eat ice cream, depending no matter what diet you're on. It does have cashews in it. So if you have a nut allergy, I apologize. But this ice cream is 100% foolproof. And I literally tested everything in a $70 KitchenAid ice cream maker that I purchased on Amazon. That thing is still kicking. So you don't need an expensive ice cream maker to make these whatsoever, but you literally just toast some cashews, you soak them for about an hour up to overnight, and you blend them with a little bit of palm sugar, some coconut oil, some salt and vanilla, and coconut cream, and you spin it, and it's super easy. And
it's really creamy. Like it's really good.
In half an hour.
My kids who don't like quote unquote paleo desserts, they totally thought it was delicious.
Yeah. The funny thing is I was struggling with that recipe for quite some time. And then my friend Tyler, who owns Salt and Straw and comes up with all their different flavors, he was like, hey, ice cream is actually a ratio. So once he told me the ice cream was a ratio of fat, sugar, and protein, I knew what direction I needed to go in. And so I'm very proud of that recipe. So I hope you make it. Let me know how it goes.
Okay, so Christy asks, is there a recipe in the book that will capture your flavor for those of us that don't live close enough to try Cannes to give us a sense of your cooking?
Sure.
I feel like all of them.
Yeah, I think the dish that represents Cannes the most is probably the Haitian style chicken. It's called poule na sauce. And it's the chicken legs that are marinated overnight with lemon and lime and orange juice, onions, garlic, and habanero. And then they get seared, and then they get cooked with tomato paste, peppers, onions, and chicken stock. And you cook them until they are falling apart tender, and it's super delicious. I've actually made it quite a few times from the recipe in the book, so I have full confidence that it's very foolproof. And a lot of my friends in different parts of the country have made that dish, and it's been a favorite for the entire family. So I definitely
So I had
suggest
a question
yeah,
about that because a lot of people are like, I don't like spicy.
yeah.
So could they leave out the habanero, or you really think that they should leave a little bit in just because that's how it should be?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a I don't I think there's probably enough mention in the recipe if it's a spicy dish, like the jerk
Hmm.
cauliflower is definitely a spicy dish. The
Hmm.
pulno sauce has a little bit of heat. But yeah, I mean, I think if you want to trust me for the first time, go for it.
Hmm.
And then, if it's too spicy for your family, the next time, you can adjust. But I encourage everyone to try it as written.
Okay, so Wendy asks, can you find all of your ingredients locally? If not, where do you source them from? I
Sure.
follow Yotam Ottolenghi and have a hard time finding some of his ingredients locally.
Okay. Well, the thing I've learned is with having recipe testers in different parts of the country is that not all cities are similar. And I've also learned that Portland has amazing resources for shopping.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I really wanted the bulk of the book to be able to be purchased at, local grocery stores or like a natural food store like Whole Foods. But, even around here, somewhere like Safeway, you can find coconut oil, you can find almond flour. So a lot of these ingredients that maybe we're not 100% familiar with, you can actually find them at your local store. I'm not sure about maybe in different parts of the country, not as many resources, but if for the Portland folks, I 100% shopped for the entire book in Portland. I shopped at Sheridan, I shopped at Whole Foods, I shopped at Safeway, I shopped at Fred Meyer, and I shopped at Foodon.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't have these stores in your neighborhood, I suggest scouring the health aisles, the baking aisles for alternative flours, the oil sections. Scour your stores, and if all else fails, you can always order something online with just a couple clicks. I know Amazon is a very polarizing source of product, but the reality is, in a pinch, you can probably get something from Amazon and like sent to your house in a day.
Yeah, or Thrive Market has a lot of natural food stuff where you can buy directly from the source. So I think that and I think most places probably have like a little mom and pop ethnic grocery store that
Yeah.
you may have never wandered into, and they may have all sorts of stuff that you didn't know that they had.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Nicole asks, what are your go-to kitchen cookware pieces or devices for our small minimalist condo here in Portland? I know you have to keep it a minimum among all your home plants.
Yeah, my kitchen is very small, but as a chef, I I have a few key pieces, and I definitely think I can't stop talking about my spice grinder, which is literally like a $20, $14 coffee grinder. So I use that to grind cinnamon and whole spices and whole coriander, and also a zester. I love a good microplane. I use it for just grating zest over things. And, often a lot of my recipes called for zest and, utilizing all that citrus. The zest has all the essential oils. A mandolin, a Japanese mandolin is also a great item. And I think you can probably get them for like 20 to 30 bucks at like a knife store or online. And it's definitely something that really helps you slice things. There's definitely a few salads that call for slicing things nice and thin, and a mandolin helps you make that slicing and dicing a lot faster. And I think the one splurge piece is a good blender. And while I did test, every single recipe in this book with really the worst blender in America. It's like a $30 old school blender. And I suffered through making sure that you could make everything with the worst blender. Um, I do believe that investing in a blender, and unfortunately blenders are quite expensive. You can spend, anywhere from $100 to $400 on a great blender. And in most professional kitchens, our blenders are about $400. We use Cuisinart. excuse me, we use VitaPrep. But splurging on a blender is probably the thing that I will definitely suggest will make your life a lot easier. So if you and your partner want to split holiday gifts, or put a little account on the side, I definitely think a great blender is going to help you a lot. It's going to help you make really smooth soups and purees. It's going to help you make smoothies, and you can actually grind spices in a blender as well. And all those curry paste and chili oils that are in the book will come together a lot faster with a great blender.
Yes, and they last a long time. Like I have a Vitamix 5200 and it's like 10 years old. It's like literally 10 years old and it's still, I've only just had to replace the little plastic, little whatever it's called, the thing that you pour out of. But they last a long time, and they go to Costco. Whenever they have those little Costco things, like they're cheapest there. Let's see. Oh, Ari wants to know, what are some of your favorite plant-based or paleo restaurants around the country?
Oh, at the high level, I love ABCV, which is a vegan and vegetarian restaurant in New York City. And I think that's really the epitome of kind of plant-forward fine dining. It's one of Jean-Georges' restaurants, and the chef there, Neil, is really fantastic. And they have some really interesting ingredients and work with a lot of local farms. What else? I think I've enjoyed like eating kind of paleo style, like restaurants like Ox in Portland. I know they're not open right now, but I do believe that they plan on reopening this summer. They always have great paleo options. I'm a big fan. They used to have this grilled halibut with chimichurri, which is really awesome. Goodness, what else? I mean, I think
there's Harlow in Portland. Yeah,
Harlow's good. Harlow's a very solid dining option. I'm trying to think what else nationally. Those are great options.
Okay, so Marie says, your con pop-up was absolutely incredible. Delicious food in a beautiful setting. I can't wait for the permanent con to open. Can you tell us a bit about your plans for that? Will it be casual or fine dining? Will your menu change, or do you plan to serve up your favorites?
That's a great question. I think the restaurant will be elevated casual. I don't want it to be stuffy, but I want to have some fun. I think Con Winter Village was a very unique experience, and it was, with all the COVID regulations, we had to have certain things in place, and we want everyone to feel really safe. And it was a tasting menu. But Con, the real restaurant, will be a little bit more casual. Everything will be family style. You'll be able to order whatever you want off the menus, and have as many plates as you desire. But I really like the sense of communal eating, something really familial, and everything will be share plates. And there's definitely some signature Haitian dishes that I want to make that should be on the menu all the time. But at the same time, I'm very much inspired by the seasons and the bounty here in Oregon, and so many different cultures, BIPOC cultures specifically all around the world, that I want to showcase and highlight, and bring their stories to the table. So I'm really excited to continually work on the menus for Con. I do believe at the core of the menu will be a collection of Haitian staples, but the rest of the menu will always be evolving.
I can't wait. Like you better get on that. I'm just kidding. You're like, what? I've worked so hard already. Okay.
Yeah.
So Camilla says, I have a family member who needs to avoid fish sauce and soy sauce. What is a good sub for that in your recipes?
Who can't have fish sauce or soy sauce?
Both.
Okay.
Fish sauce and soy sauce.
So I think coconut aminos is kind of the go-to option for that. It is not as funky, but it's a really great substitute. It has that umami-ness to it. It's dark, it's savory. And I think, well, actually in the book, I use it as a soy replacement. And, if you are avoiding fish sauce, or if you are vegan, while there are some vegan fish sauce options out there, the ones I'm familiar with are kind of based on soy. I do believe coconut aminos are a great option for that.
And Kendra asks, hi, Chef. How do you think your cookbook will impact how people experience and embrace Black Pan-African foodways?
Great question. Hi, Kendra. Good to see you here. For me, one of the things that I love most about food, and we haven't touched on this yet, is just really the cultural stories behind it. And, we oftentimes, when we think about our favorite foods, there truly is a centuries long story behind it, how ingredients crossed over to different parts of the world. One example is, why is there sometimes ginger and soy sauce in, Jamaican jerk? And that's because Chinese immigrants brought those ingredients over to Jamaica. And there are endless examples of that. Why is there curry in Japan? It's because, indentured servants brought curry over, to Japan, so there's all these great cultural stories about how ingredients travel the world and how they inform, how our cuisines are. And a lot of that, is focused on the African diaspora and in the Caribbean. So, I think it's really important that as we dive into different cultures and we have, different ingredients and sauces and spice mixes from all around the world, we understand, the story behind these ingredients. And I'm very honored of my Haitian heritage. Haiti had a very, very rough beginning. The Spanish really decimated the native and indigenous population in Haiti and decided to start bringing slaves over. So the indigenous population of Haiti was just decimated. And through that, the French came on board and Haitian cuisine, modern Haitian, the current Haitian cuisine was formed. So that's a really important story when we think about really what's the root of Haitian food. And, I know that experience Haitian food is probably something new for a lot of people, but, the story behind Haitian food is obviously very, very complex. And I think it's important that we know about these stories and we understand that oftentimes there are very, very complicated stories behind our favorite foods.
And I actually think in your book, you do, like, for every recipe, you've been very respectful where you're like, this is not, whatever the original dish is. You're like, this is inspired by this dish. This is like a Thai style, whatever dish.
Mm-hmm.
And you do put kind of the backstory, like, to all of the, like, in the whole pantry section and in each recipe, like in each head note. And that's another part where Heather and I are like, gosh darn it, we don't have all of this backstory in our recipes, but it's good because Gigi already did it. And I think that's great. So someone says, what's your guilty pleasure? The one thing we'd never guess you love to eat. Ooh, inquiring minds want to know.
Honestly, I'm like super simple, and I have a huge
junk food.
No, I don't really eat junk food. I mean, I'll be very honest. I have a huge sweet tooth, and I eat a lot of cookies and cupcakes. They're all like vegan and gluten-free.
That's not it.
They're still loaded with sugar, but it's been a rough year for all of us.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, honestly, I honestly eat pretty healthy. I love a good nut butter and jelly sandwich. It's probably my favorite food. And strawberry jelly with sunflower seed butter on gluten-free bread is my go-to. But lately,
someone said, what is your favorite dessert in Portland?
My favorite dessert in Portland, honestly, right now, it's really hard, but it's all from the same place. So I'm obsessed with Berlou, which is a Vietnamese bakery, and everything is dairy-free and gluten-free, and everything is just lightly sweetened. So it's absolutely exceptional. Vince and his team are creating just really some of the best desserts in town. They're very high-skilled desserts, and they have like coconut milk and cassava in the desserts, and they're just really, really fantastic. I'm a huge fan of the mango cake roll, which is a sheet cake it's so light, it's slow fluffy. There's a really coconut custard tart, which is absolutely delicious. And there's also a rhubarb and cassava tart, which is mind-blowing. So I encourage you all to go see Vince at Berlou. The bakery's only open on Saturday and Sunday, and I encourage you to pre-order because he sells out every weekend.
Yes, and they have an amazing pandan, like waffle and fried chicken. So it's like Paris hot guy with his amazing pandan waffles. All right. So Joseph says, it was so much fun following the creation and realization of Khan. What were memorable moments of that adventure? How was the red? Congrats, by the way.
Yeah, Khan was quite the experience. Khan was actually part of a national program with American Express and Resi, and they graciously gave us the yurts. But about 13 different cities across the country had yurt villages. We were the only group that did not have a physical restaurant to put our yurts in. So while all my friends were getting yurts and putting them, by the pool at their hotel or in their parking lot, I, literally didn't have a blender to my name for the restaurant. So we had to build a restaurant in about 30 days. We had to get all the licenses. We had to purchase refrigeration. We had to hire a team. So we really had to pull that off. We had to find the space, and graciously the Red were fantastic partners. But we had to do all of that in about 30 days because we were asked to do the project in October. And I was still filming Top Chef, and we were supposed to open December 3rd. Luckily, we were in a freeze, so the governor pushed us back. But Khan was very, very special. And I think for me, the biggest piece, besides working with an amazing team of people who were down to work throughout the pandemic, it was really about creating a special experience for people who had not been out of the house for 12 months, 13 months, 14 months. People who knew that they would have a safe experience. They trusted us to just welcome them in a warm and safe way, and maybe have them experience some foods and flavors they haven't had before, and just really have a special night out in a very, very dark time. To think about the winter of the pandemic, right after like the holiday spike, and to be able to be successful in creating experiences for people, that's probably the biggest sense of gratitude that I have from the experience.
I have to say, like, the first place that we ate during pandemic that was not my house was at Khan, and it was so good that we went back a second time because it was so amazing. So I didn't realize, like, it's actually way past an hour already. So we're gonna end with one more question. That's it. And I'm actually gonna cut this down because Nori wants to know what are your top 5 used spices in your spice drawer. But let's just do 2, and then that will be the last question.
Top 2 spices in my spice drawer?
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Like dried spices. I mean, like I am obsessed with chilies. I talk about chilies all the time. There's tons of chilies in my book. Chilies is probably my number 1 spice. Ginger is something I use quite a bit.
A chili is like 20 different things. Yeah, so that's okay.
Yeah. But
that's cheating.
After that, I think coriander is probably something I use quite a bit. And I use it from making things that are probably, even Mexican inspired to, some curry paste. So, I think it's one of those to, anything barbecue, American barbecue. So I think coriander is probably like, it's up there, but really I pretty much season everything with a type of chili. Sometimes it's, just simple red chili flakes. Sometimes it's crushed dried Thai chilies. Sometimes it's chipotle powder that's nice and smoky. But yeah, I love chilies. And I think coriander. One of my favorite things to use now is dried thyme. I love thyme. Yeah, thyme is something that we use a lot in Haitian culture and cuisine. And I think there's definitely a handful of herbs that are nice dried that you can use dried. I think thyme and rosemary are some of those herbs that, can stand the test of drying. And dried thyme is one of those ingredients that I interchange that with fresh thyme all the time.
Nice. So I think that's the end. I think we've been cut off in terms of time. Like they're gonna turn the music on and.
All right, Michelle, Gregory, so good. It was just like a parade of great questions and lots of fun food facts and stories, and such a delight to have both of you guys here. Michelle, I hope that you and Henry can come and do a Zoom or a talk in our store when your book comes out. That'll be great. So watch for Michelle's book later this year. Gregory's book. I'm going to put it in the chat one more time here. And all right, there it is in the chat. So everyone click on that link, go order Gregory's book. And yeah, really looking
asked if
forward
they
to
can
this.
still get signed copies.
Oh yeah.
Or was that just pre-order?
I think that was, well, I don't know. Gregory, do you have any idea? Did you go to like some warehouse and sign like
I
hundreds?
have signed 1,500 copies, but
You did.
I am, if they keep ordering, I will keep signing. So this is a challenge.
Yes.
Okay. I know that a lot of I think all the pre-orders were signed. People who are ordering it now will try to make sure that they're signed. And I think you can even maybe put a note in your order, you know, signed copy, please. And if we can do that, we'll definitely do that. So everyone is clamoring for that Gregory Gourdet autograph. So,
That's right.
all right. Thanks again, you two. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And until next time, have a good night. We'll see you at the next reading.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
Michelle.
Thanks.
Appreciate
No,
you.
thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate y'all. Thank you.